If you're like me, playing video games has been a blast these past few years, and that's mostly because of how often I go back to play games from 10 or more years ago compared to the newer offerings. There's just something about the older games. They're just far superior to what we usually get these days. Sure, there's anomalies here or there that are amazing, but generally nothing can really match the feel of a retro game to me. Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles is my game of the year if I had to pick right now. Sure, it's a remaster of a 90s game, and one of my favorite games of all time brought back to the modern day. Is it fair that a remaster of a game I already love is my game of the year? Probably not, but honestly, I don't care either way. Replaying Final Fantasy Tactics in 2025 was like getting hit with a freight train of nostalgia, and being slapped repeatedly with how good games can be when they avoid the usual pitfalls that we see today. I know I'm not the only one, however. As seen here from GameIndustry.biz, 90% of gamers have played a remake or remaster recently, and it does not surprise me one bit. You see, remasters and remakes are all the rage right now, from Metal Gear Solid Delta to Oblivion earlier this year, and many more. The resurgence of older games has become actually one of the hottest gaming trends, and frankly I'm all for it, cause these remasters usually cost way less to make than new ones obviously. Well, Metal Gear Solid Delta was full price to buy, but stuff like Oblivion wasn't, thankfully. Either way, remasters are so popular for a single reason, because they're great games already. And they're also a cheaper way for companies and studios to use these re-releases to finance a potential game sequel in the future. Companies also re-release games as remasters to test how well those games are received by people these days, to then gauge if a potential sequel should be made in that particular franchise. For example, as seen here, Prototype 1 and 2 got a recent update on Steam that kind of broke its mods, and teased a potential remaster for the game, which surprised players. Obviously, data miners delved into these surprising updates for Prototype 1 and 2, which were about 600 megabytes apiece, and found that new studios were actually being added to the credits of the game that didn't previously work on those games. One of the studios added was Iron Galaxy. As seen here from Reddit's Gaming Leaks and Rumors, data miners found this, and yeah, Iron Galaxy, in case you don't know, they've worked on other remasters like Spyro the Dragon and more. So this is all but confirmed at this point that the Prototype games are getting potentially fully remastered, and you should probably expect an announcement at some time. And if you ask me, I would love that, because I would replay those games again in a heartbeat. Yet when I look at newer games, because I'm not as interested to be honest, mostly because newer games usually come with stuff I don't really like, and that's putting it lightly. Forced agendas, overtly monetized, and of course one of the more annoying problems in games these days, ugly female characters. Oh boy, here we go. Yep, they're gonna call me a misogynist for this one, just add it to the list I guess, but that's a good way of knowing that a modern Western studio is making a game. Because the women in all of these games, they look like androgynous body type A or B people, as if they were like born in tubes from paste in like a lab or something. This leads me to a post that got a lot of traction online from someone named SheRage, who said this: "I don't know who needs to hear this, but women who you don't personally find attractive exist in the real world, and they can exist in video games as well. If you can't play a video game without every woman in it looking like a gooner fantasy, you are brain rotted and need help." I also found this post incredibly tone deaf and kind of hilarious, given that the person that posted this has themselves in a bikini as their profile picture. The irony isn't lost on any of us, but alright. Anyways, as you can see in that image, the left side has conventionally attractive female characters, while the right has a lot of the best examples of characters that players have obviously become sick of, like Abby from The Last of Us, Tosh from Veilguard, and more. Even Atsu from Ghost of Yotei is there, which, yep, that checks out too. It's funny how no matter how many games flop like Veilguard or more, or movies that push girl boss agendas, look at Tron Ares right now, it's flopping like crazy. The same types never seem to learn any of the concrete lessons from any of it. It's just, you're sexist, you want blow-up dolls in games, and that's pretty much it. There's a reason why I brought up remasters and just older games in general doing so well, by the way. Because people are going back to older media because that older media is often never as ugly or stupid as things are today. Ah yes, back in the day when women and men were normal and we didn't use stupid terms like body types and non-binary. It could really all be so simple, but then Asmongold comes in with a really good point against this SheRage woman, where he says this: "How many cosplays exist for characters on the left versus the right? Not only do men disagree with you, but women do too. Actions speak louder better than words, come back to reality. There's no reason to do this to yourself. I think it's safe to say Asmongold cooked She-Rage here because he's right. If you go look up cosplays online from women, it's almost always them dressing up as the cutest and sexiest characters most of the time. Sure, I guess there's some Abby cosplays, or you may find a Tash here or there, but they pale in comparison to, say, cosplayers looking like the Marvel Rivals characters, for a great example. How many cosplays exist for, say, Luna Snow already? A character that, frankly, the majority of the gaming community didn't even know existed in the Marvel universe until Rivals dropped. Like, I didn't even know Luna Snow existed at all. But now, she's everywhere, dude. And Rivals has added swimsuit skins like the one for Luna, which is pretty dang popular, and gee, I wonder why by just looking at it. Another good litmus test that your game is actually popular and your characters are cool is that there's, well, how do I say this? There is lewd art, if you will. P-O-R-N. I can't say the word on YouTube of the characters, but you know what I mean. Do you maybe know what Rule 34 is? Of course you do. Yeah, if there's Rule 34s of video game characters, which say for Rivals or Final Fantasy even, yeah, there's plenty of that. That probably means that those character designers did their job in making those character designs very, very well. But then you had games like Concord, which we all know died after like 2 weeks from launch. Concord was full to the brim with ugly characters across the board. And the future for that game was absolutely cooked already because there was zero, and I'm not kidding, zero Rule 34 lewd art of any of Concord's characters. If you don't believe me, here's a post from Reddit where someone looked up Concord Rule 34 art when the game came out, and they barely found anything at all. Yeah, you know you're cooked when even the people who draw that sort of thing aren't even bothered to make those things out of your game. Yet if you go look up Resident Evil or Stellar Blade Rule 34, we both know you're going to be drowning in the amount of content that will exist for those sorts of games instead. So what this She-Rage lady, who again unironically said this with a bikini profile picture, is trying to convey is clearly in the wrong here. Nobody wants ugly characters. You're only being delusional to the fact because you don't want to annoy or anger that particular crowd of the internet. And you'd think for someone who is comfortable enough to post bikini pics of themselves, they would understand the importance of physical health and how looking objectively healthy is better than whatever Concord was trying to do. But this is why I hate where games have gone in recent years, because we got people who are fit and healthy having to now lie to themselves about the very clear objective reality of things because they're afraid to annoy some person who's online who's like 400 pounds and says that they're non-binary or they, them or something. It's the usual delusion, right? You could show a picture of Lizzo to a woman and she'll say, oh, she's beautiful. But if you say they look like Lizzo or they remind you of Lizzo, they're gonna be suddenly offended. Like, which is it then? Is she beautiful, or are you just lying to avoid conflict and be nice because you don't want to be perceived as mean? It's one or the other, I guess. Again, this is why people are overwhelmingly running away from newer games mostly to play older stuff now instead. Because back then, companies and studios, they just made games that appealed to your interests. Yeah, call me sexist all you want, I really don't care. Your words mean nothing anymore because I've seen what these types have cheered for in the past. I don't want ugly fat freaks in my games. Or stuff like Mary Jane Watson looking like a flesh walker in Spider-Man 2. Like, look at this comparison from Mary Jane from Spider-Man 1 versus 2 from Insomniac. It's a night and day difference, bro. You can't be serious. Anyone who says that Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2 is objectively better as a design, they need to be slapped upside the head for acting stupid on purpose. It's even worse when you compare the face model for Mary Jane versus how Insomniac made her look in the game, which is this picture right here on screen. This is like slapping God in heaven, man. What was Insomniac thinking with this design? She looks nothing like the woman you based her on. They should be ashamed of themselves for doing this. Look at this picture of Mary Jane smiling in Spider-Man 2. Like, what did they do to her, man? It's as if someone smeared poop all over the Mona Lisa. It makes me shake my head in sadness every time I'm reminded that they did this to her in that game. Of course, that She-Rage lady would try to clap back, so here's what she said. You know how many video games out there force me to play as a man I'm not attracted to? Nearly all of them. But you don't see me crying because I can't have a wank over some pixels. Grow up. You see, it's not about wanking over pixels, it's that people just know the uglification of female characters is being done on purpose. It's a demoralizing tactic is what it is. It's to normalize a concept across the industry, which the Western game studios have been doing for years now, despite all the losses they've had in sales, and you know that to be true. And yet the games that do it the best, like Stellar Blade, go against this mantra and instead harken back to how games used to be made or even looked like. Again, this all ties into that remaster thing. People just want to go back to how things used to be because what's being done now is clearly not working. If it was working, the sales would reflect that, but we both know they don't. Older game remasters are doing well. Look at this from The Gamer half a year ago already, where Oblivion Remastered sold more in 2 weeks than the original game did in over a year. This information came from Matt Piscatella of Circana. Here's what he said via Blue Sky. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered sold more units in April 2025 than the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion achieved across its first 15 months in market, combined following its March 2006 debut, and generated more full game dollar sales than the original's first 14 months combined. Gee, it's almost as if people are more excited to play older games these days than the newer ones or something, like I said already. Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster is my game of the year, because it reminded me of how good games could be back then. It's another reason why I no longer care about graphical fidelity. I just want fun games that don't try to lecture me, that offer compelling stories and characters, that also, work smoothly at release, which is definitely a bonus. I mean, Concord was slop. I could drop a bunch of names of games you guys already forgot that also pushed this sort of thing and failed. Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn flopped. No one remembers South of Midnight, Dustborn. I could keep going. And all of these games have a thing in common. They all tried to push this weird narrative that this is what players wanted, when in fact, they didn't want it at all. Even Ghost of Yotei doesn't have any Rule 34 of it. Gee, I wonder why. Where's the Yotei Atsu cosplays that weren't paid for by PlayStation first? Like, the only person that I've seen cosplaying Atsu is the lady who played the literal character during an official event to, promote the game at PlayStation. Nobody wants to cosplay these characters. Nobody wants to be these characters. That should tell you everything that people don't want anything to do with these modern slop inventions. A great example is Chun-Li from Street Fighter. She alone has more cosplays and media of her than any of these slop games combined, and for good reason. Women can deny it all they want, but the studies just tell the truth. From SciPost, as seen here, female gamers prefer playing as highly sexualized characters despite disliking them. Uh-oh, that goes against the agenda. But here's what they said from a study from Communication Research as it reads. Researchers found that while strength in female video game characters might signal capability, it doesn't counterbalance the negative impact of sexualization. But in a surprising twist, female participants, despite generally disliking highly sexualized characters, were more likely to choose these characters when given the option to play as one. It's as if their brains know the truth, but the social programming is fighting tooth and nail to tell them not to choose those options, yet their nature wins in the end anyways, always. One of the studies that was used, they used the game Soul Calibur 6. Basically, these researchers put very attractive, sexy female character models in front of the people that were, the study participants here, and then they would show them short video clips of these women fighting in Soul Calibur 6. They would then shift over and then show clips of other characters with smaller, dimensions and breadths and more, clothed bodies fighting as well. They would then ask the participants to vote on which character they would play as. Here's the results as it reads. Interesting gender-based differences emerged in character preferences. Female participants generally disliked highly sexualized characters, but were more likely to choose characters with high femininity traits typically associated with higher sexualization cues when given a choice. Male participants, on the other hand, gravitated towards characters that were strong yet less sexualized, indicating different gender-based preferences in the interpretation of character traits. I guarantee you that those guys just did that so they weren't being labeled sexist, but in the privacy of their own homes, they're gonna choose the biggest chested, biggest bootied woman you've ever seen in your life with dragon's crown level curves, and I assure you. Hilariously though, one of the researchers was interviewed and this is what they said. I was surprised to see that in our first study, women still selected the most sexualized character when asked which character they would choose to play. It's important to remember that this character was also rated as the most feminine, so it's possible that women were just selecting the character they most identified with. Well. They chose the hottest character because they identify with them the most. So what did we learn here? That no matter what people try to do, you can't undermine or change the biology of how people think. Women are always going to want to look hot themselves and go after the hottest guys that they can find. And men also want to look good and hot and go after women that they also find hot and attractive too. Congratulations! You guys wasted money on a survey to come to the conclusion that common sense wins in the end. Like I said, remasters are selling because they're catering to that return to the good old days. I guarantee you, if EA remastered Dragon Age Origins and didn't add any stupid nonsense to it and just left it as it was, it would 1000% sell more copies than Veilguard ever did. I can guarantee that. Look at how many copies the Mass Effect Legendary Edition sold. Again, another remaster. As seen here in 2021 from Video Games Chronicle, Mass Effect's remaster sold like hotcakes and was well above expectations. Who could have guessed that a trilogy of objectively amazing games with no stupid nonsense sold amazingly well that has attractive female characters in it? There was also another idiot who also attacked Asmongold over Ghost of Yote of all things, where the game was being pulled into the culture war as they say, but here's what this guy said to Asmongold. People like you conscripted the game into the culture war. It's because of people like you we have to bear these conversations. Stop acting like it's tiresome or exhausting to you. You and all of your controversy farming tubers caused this, F you. Ah yes, the culture war. You mean the thing that began because the people like this guy allowed things to get so bad that the only reasonable way to fix it was for people to rise up and resist it. You see, the reason why these types are so mad is really simple. It's because they were so used to having progressive politics shoved into everything imaginable for years that they actually believed that it would just become the normal. However, instead, the opposite happened, which resulted in that culture war you claim is the problem, when in reality it's the panacea to the infection that types like this allowed to fester because they refused to rise up against it originally. Of course, now they're mad that they're losing every battle no matter the cause, and that the culture warriors, as they put it, continue to keep winning over and over again. It really didn't have to be this way, but you guys did it to yourselves. The ultimate stupid take of this Nicola guy's rant was where that he doesn't even realize that by allowing said progressive slop to spread, it was that actually ruined the video games, not the other way around, because the culture war never existed until those things existed in games first. Even though they'll never admit it, but we both know that's true. But what's happening currently with the culture war is instead a reset, a fixing of the problems that these types and many more like them allowed to happen in the first place. All because they were too afraid to push back because they either didn't want to lose access or get blacklisted from the people they call their friends, when in reality, you're just convenient allies at best. Now things need to be fixed. Common sense has to return. And with the way that the market is going, the games that do the best, both financially and so on, are usually the ones that don't push this sort of ideologic slop, if you will. You are not winning because you refuse to adapt. But it is impossible to adapt such a fallacy either way, because what these positions are based on to begin with begin and end in bad faith, ultimately dooming them no matter what they do. So now the fixing will commence. The older games will continue to thrive. The common sense will spread, and the stupid every woman should be ugly otherwise you're a bigot narrative will continue to fail. You called players everything you could muster, it didn't work, now you just have to bow down and accept you lost. Or don't. I'll just keep making fun of you guys and showing thousands of people how stupid these types really are in videos like this in the future too. If you ask me, forced political ideology in gaming is horrible, but the nice thing is we are winning. So let's keep it up, everyone. Thanks for watching, subscribe, see you next time, and I really hope that Prototype Remaster is real, dude, because oh my god, I would play that in an instant. Okay, have a great day. Thanks.